Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too. My last day of honoring Joseph Campbell, who you may or may not know, was a deep student of Eastern philosophy, both because one of his mentors, Heinrich Zimmer, was a great Indologist, and also he had a lifelong connection with Ananda Kurmaswamy, who helped to elucidate the symbolism behind much of Hindu iconography and art. He also helped to edit and translate the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna with Swami Nikhilananda, one of the great devotional classics of all time. So he really knew his stuff, and even though he was a scholar of world mythology, he had a lot of insights into Hinduism and Buddhism, and so I want to honor him for that. Now, I'm here to mythologically impregnate you, right? And use yogic imagery to help transcend our current time historical moment and take a look at what is constant and grave in the human condition. And that's why you have to deal with what they call dukkha, or suffering. So everything that we're doing in yoga is, in a certain way, is to try to alleviate or get out of suffering. And of course, one way of doing that is getting out of time. And they use the body in yoga. The body becomes a mythological epiphany. You can awaken through the different chakra systems, perspectives that take you beyond the pale of the village compound that we're all born into. And of course, they suggest that you do this as a kind of dance in life. It's called the lila, the play. So it requires a genuine capacity for curiosity, investigation, inquisitiveness. So the study isn't just dry reading books and discussing stuff from the logos or the head part of yourself. It's really a participation, an immersion, so that there's no separation ultimately between yourself and your acting in life, your commitment to relationships and the other things that you're involved in your society and the world at large. Now, all things mature slowly. Great things mature slowly. That means you have to take your time, and over-enthusiasm is short-lived. You have to be in it for the long haul, or as I like to say to students, my job is to make you a lifer. Or, as they say, even with studying a musical instrument, take time out for that which takes time. It takes time for that which takes time. And especially in a subject that's so vast and esoteric like yoga, you can't grasp it at one glimpse. You got to be at it for a while and come back and study it again and mull it over and so forth. But it starts all with certain spontaneous assumptions which are antecedent to all teaching. And what is that? That we are consciousness, and that consciousness is the same as living spirit. So in a certain way, yoga is about learning to consciously realize how you are embodied spirit, and then to prepare you for moving on to other stages. Now, one of the hard things that we have to do is, of course, overcome the socialization that starts when you're very young. And of course, if your parents were good and they really showed you attention and solicitude, it's hard to erase. It's almost an absolutely ineradicable conviction, which no amount of rational thought can overcome or critique. No empirical science can erase this, that the world is there to serve you. And that's the part of the ego through adolescent rites of passage that we have to, I don't want to say break or cower, but take those crude impulses that we all experience when we're adolescents and domesticate them and turn them to the service of the community. So it's not to break anybody. We don't want broken people. We don't want disheartened people, but we want people who are going to re-coordinate, repurpose their life into the service of the community. And of course, when they do that, it's like we're getting a new birth, a second birth, a spiritual birth. And that's the birth of the temporal body into the spiritual birth, into out of time into the field of spirit. So that the mythology takes us into a time that isn't chronological. It's much more psychological and spiritual. And of course, all of that leads you to another stage of maturity, which is the other side. So just as you mature out of childhood to the other side, the end of life and the impact of old age or death is the ultimate dark gate that we are all learning to face, and hopefully through a good life lived, willing to face.